Hey,
Hey, Kirk. I started the session and recording, so I'm going to stay locally muted, and I suggest you do the well. Same.
sounds good.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to this morning's product release webinar. We're going to get started in just over 5 minutes, so see you in a few. Good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Paul. I'll be presenting the NeoLoad product release webinar this morning. Thank you for coming. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Your audio will be muted throughout the presentation and demo. Please hold your questions until the end, but you're welcome to ask questions using the questions window in the GoToWebinar client. And we'll take your questions at the end of the session. I'll also include my email address if there's any questions you think of after the fact. You can simply send those to me. I'll either answer them or pass them on to the relevant subject matter experts. What we'll be covering today is we're going to do some quick introductions. I'm joined today by Kirk Tuxhorn, who you'll get to meet in just a moment. We're going to take a quick look at NeoLoad and where it fits into the DevOps, Agile, and continuous testing environments overall. Then Kirk will give you a first look and a quick demo of NeoLoad 6, and then we'll take your questions and talk about some next steps. Again, I am Greg Paul. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at Neotis. And Kirk, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, Greg. Kirk Tuxhorn. I'm a Sales and Performance Engineer with Neotis.
So Kirk will be driving the demo in just a little bit. So I'd like to walk through just a few of the market trends quickly that were kind of driving our thinking and vision behind this new release. As everyone who owns a smartphone, which is everybody, knows, we're in an app economy. Some of the stats, like 30% of all global e-commerce sales will come from smartphone users, and smartphones are becoming increasingly involved in purchasing decisions. In fact, over 3/4 of smartphone users are doing research on their phone before they make a purchase, whether it's online or in the brick-and-mortar retail store. And it's also becoming incredibly clear that constant innovation is table stakes now for businesses that want to compete in this marketplace. Users are always looking for new features, new technology, and they're looking to get it faster than ever before. They're also looking for engagement to be able to use their apps whenever, wherever they want, in any way that they want, on any device that they want. So as developers and companies that are providing solutions to this market, how do you respond to that? Well, the answer is the growth in Agile and DevOps methodologies. In Annual State of Agile report for 2017, 94% of respondents' organizations practice some form of Agile. And as far as DevOps, enterprise adoption is pretty widespread at this point. It's gone from really just a talking point 5 years ago to over 2/3 of enterprises, according to the Right Scale 2016 State of the Cloud report, are at least partially adopting a DevOps methodology. So I'd like to jump into what's new in this release. This is our NeoLoad 6 release, and try to build a little context first in the context of the DevOps tools ecosystem, where NeoLoad is covering the code, build, test, and release phases. We also integrate with a wide variety of other tools in the ecosystem, from CI tools like Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity, and through the build and test phases with mobile app solutions like Perfecto, Appium. You've got players that kind of fit across the board like Selenium, and on to working with the APM type tools like Dynatrace App Dynamics and CA APM. So for this release, like all the previous releases of NeoLoad, it really highlights our commitment to giving you the fastest, most automated performance testing tool for these environments. specifically what's new in NeoLoad 6 is we've enabled easier collaboration using our web-based SaaS interface. We call this NeoLoad Web. And you can easily share charts and tables with anyone involved in analysis, testers, developers, business stakeholders, product owners, or test execution. You can all work from a shared repository of test results and test assets. So that's fairly exciting. And there's also an additional set of test analysis features that are available in the NeoLoad Web, which Kirk will walk you through. One of the most exciting is the ability to layer test results on top of one another, so you can graphically see comparison with tests underway with baseline tests, so that you can see any problems during the test without waiting to fix the problem, take some reaction. You can also have personalized graphical keyboards that allow you to mix KPIs in the same graph, and again, that will be shown during the demo. And just to recap a little bit of how we got here, looking back on some of the major releases, we introduced Selenium integration with Selenium Java in 5.3, and some of the technology support for MQTT for our Internet of Things type solutions, also in 5.3. In 5.4, we continued the Selenium integration with Selenium C#, and allowing you to do automated script maintenance. And in 5.5, the TeamCity plugin was introduced, and the switch logical action. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Kirk to make the actual demo. And Kirk, you take it away for us.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to step through NeoLoad Web and a few other of the new integrations that we've developed in the latest versions of NeoLoad. Okay, so in NeoLoad, if you have the enterprise license right now, you'll see once you upgrade the NeoLoad 6.0 that you have this NeoLoad Web section in Preferences. And you can actually create an access token and use NeoLoad Web. If you guys are on something other than Enterprise, then we certainly encourage you to download the evaluation version from our corporate website of NeoLoad 6.0, and then you'll be able to try it out for yourself. And so what I'll actually do is I'll just say, if I didn't have one set up, I'd say get an access token, and then it'll take me to a login screen. And then this is actually your Neotis portal account. And so you'll just log in your Neotis portal account, and then it'll bring you into being able to create an access token that will allow you to push results from the controller up to NeoLoad Web. And so if I go to the home screen after I've created that token, what I'm going to see is the latest test that I pushed up to NeoLoad Web. And so you can see I've got 5 here. I also do want to point out that this latest one, as you notice, it says parentheses build 2. This is actually a test that was initiated by Jenkins. So if you're using continuous integration servers and you're automating a performance test, you can now view that test live in NeoLoad Web, which is really neat. So what I want to do is from the controller, I'll just come into my runtime and I'll say, let's go ahead and run a test. And then as you can see, now we have this additional checkbox here that says transfer data to NeoLoad Web. So I'll just go ahead and say play. It just takes a moment to initialize the counters and spin up the test. And then when I go back into NeoLoad Web, you'll see that now I'm able to view a live test. And so the idea is that you're able to give access to a whole bunch of different users across a cross-functional team where not everybody might have access to the actual controller and the NeoLoad application, but they can now all get access to looking into the results of a running test as well as doing post-test analysis. So the idea is maybe you have some specific database counters that you need a DBA to dig into, but they're not the performance engineer, so they don't have access to NeoLoad and they're not real familiar with the NeoLoad controller. Well, you can just create them an account, have them log into the portal, and then do their deep dive analysis on the database and build their own custom dashboards. So you can see now that my running test has showed up. So if I drill into this test, we now get an overview here where I can see it ramping. So right now I'm at 2 users. This is actually a test that will ramp to 50 users. I'm getting some nice information here about average request response time and requests per second, as well as kind of the summary information that you guys will be familiar with from the summary report that we show in results. Also, I'm able to change the amount of time that I'm looking at for the overview. So last 10 minutes, last 30 minutes, or from the start of the test, not something that's available in the GUI right now, so nice feature to have. And then the values tab here. So those of you that are very familiar with NeoLoad will be aware that typically the values tab is something that you see after we collate the results after a test run is completed. But now in web, we can actually get live information for some of that statistical data, and I can drill as far down as the request level and then get all of the information like min, average, max, count, errors, hits per second in the tabular format as well while the test is running. So that's pretty neat. And then from the overview, I can also go ahead and say, let's drill in further and really start building out graphs, right? So this is what you'll be very familiar with. So I can see here that I can still graph multiple KPIs on a single graph here. So in this example, I'm looking at average duration for all pages, graphed again CPU idle on a Linux server that's hosting an application. But what's really great about NeoLoad Web is right now, this is the running test. So let's say that I want to take a look and say all pages, average duration, drag and drop this over. And I'm going to go ahead and change the color of this so it's a little easier for you to see. We now have a really nice full RGB interface here. So I'll just make this blue. So this is the running test. Now let's say I have a baseline that I ran yesterday and I want to compare my baseline against my live test. Well, now we're able to do that. So that's a really big feature of NeoLoad Web. So now I can see, again, I'm going to change the color of this guy. I'll make this one red. Now I can see that I'm comparing against the baseline with a live test, and as this test progresses, I can see how well am I tracking against the baseline. So that's really helpful. That in addition with being able to provide a bunch of users access to the web portal to all dig in and create their own custom dashboards relative to their subject matter expertise is a really great benefit of NeoLoad Web. So you also will have the ability to create users here if you're an admin in NeoLoad Web, so there would be an extra option here. And then the last thing I kind of want to say on this is that there's some great documentation that we have. So I could go to documentation, and then we have a quick start guide, as well as kind of getting started with NeoLoad Web that'll walk you through how to do everything in NeoLoad Web if you have any questions on that. So now let's talk a little bit about actually the Selenium user path update and conversion to user path that we have. So that's something that we introduced in 5.3 and 5.4. And I'm just going to stop this test and I'll actually go into a different project here. And what this allows you to do is it's the reuse of functional test assets. So if you already have Selenium in your organization and you've built out some functional test scripts in Selenium, we can actually take those and convert those into NeoLoad user paths. And we're able to do that both from the Java side as well as the C# side. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys from the Java side. So if I come into Eclipse here where I've got my Selenium script, we're actually just hooking into a driver, so you could use like Chrome driver or Firefox driver. Here I'm naming my user path. I've introduced some transactions here, so I can build out some transactions in my user path just like you would when you're doing an actual proxy recording. And then what I can actually do is I can just play this from Eclipse, and then it'll bring up Chrome, it'll step through the Selenium script, and I'm going to see that it builds a user path here in NeoLoad. So here's the launching of Chrome, and you'll see this will step through a simple user flow for an application that we have that's used to submit reports of adverse weather events. Now I can see that I got a user path that's created here called submit report, and it's starting to build out these transactions for me. So this is really helpful if you guys have a whole bunch of scripts already built that you want to use as load test scripts, but you don't want to have to go through the trouble of stepping all the way through the recording, building out the transactions, all of that type of stuff. So if I came into this and I drilled into this a little bit and I took a look at a request where the report was being submitted, you can see here that I've got some hard-coded values for latitude and longitude. So for a realistic test, I'd probably want to use a whole bunch of different values. I'm sure you guys are familiar with file variables. So I have a file variable where I've got some data for latitude and longitude. So let's say that I do a little work on this and I put some parameterization in here. So I say, you know what, I'm going to inject my own data for latitude and longitude. And this is the first build of the application. And then the team comes to me and they say, hey guys, we just released a new build with some additional functionality. So you update your Selenium script, right? So then I come back here and let's say I've introduced some changes into my Selenium script. So now I want to reconvert that into a NeoLoad user path. Well, what's going to happen is as part of the conversion, we're actually going to automatically review the user path update as well, because we know that this is a newer version of a previous user path. So you'll see that, again, it's building the user path, but if you guys are familiar with the user path update from 5.2, it's actually going to compare back to the submit report user path and be able to pull some of that work forward. So you'll see what I mean in just a moment. It's just finishing the post-recording process here. So now the one that I had just played originally, right, that got tagged as _old. Here's the new one, the latest and greatest. And if you recall, before I had those hard-coded latitude and longitude values, but if I come into this request, now I can see that, look at that. I don't have to do that again. That was pulled forward because of the user path update, which was invoked as part of the user path conversion in Selenium. Additionally, as Greg mentioned, we're really trying to fit into the DevOps realm. So within the DevOps toolchain, we have an entire pipeline that we can be part of. So if I take a look at something like Jenkins, for example, and I go into a Jenkins job that as part of this job is going to have automation of performance testing, I could say something like, let's build now, and it'll start building, and then I'll go ahead and open Blue Ocean, and you'll be able to see the pipeline that we're existing in terms of the DevOps toolchain here. So here, we may check out some stuff from Git, build it through a Maven repository, do a code profiling with Sonar. We now have Docker images for load generators, so we can deploy our load generators as a Docker container for each of our different environments. Then we'll step through maybe some component testing. So we've got some automation of NeoLoad performance test and a continuous integration like Jenkins that we're looking at. Then we might look at some end user experience monitoring using something like Selenium or Ranorex integration, which NeoLoad supports. And then we move into like a full system-wide testing of all of your UI scripts using NeoLoad. And then based on that and evaluating a pass-fail criteria, we would say, okay, now let's go ahead and deploy to wherever that production environment is. In this example, it would be AWS. But this really illustrates, I think, at a high level, how NeoLoad is positioning itself to integrate into the DevOps toolchain very effectively. It'll take a little bit of time for this all to check through, but just wanted to kind of show you guys this pipeline. So let's go back into NeoLoad 6.0 here again and show you just a couple other things. One thing that was also mentioned on the different versions and what was introduced is we do have a switch action now. So if you recall previously, if you had something like a case statement, you would have to do a bunch of nested if-then-else statements. So it was a little bit tedious and didn't quite follow kind of the best practices for object-oriented programming. So we've introduced a new action here that we call the switch action, where you can evaluate the value of a response and then match the appropriate case. So kind of a nice thing to have if you guys are using case statements in your scripts. Additionally, we have opened up NeoLoad with some REST APIs. So we have some various APIs now as well. So things like design API to automate designing of user paths. We now have a runtime API, so you can call to start and stop a test through an API call, as well as a results API that will allow you to generate a report through an API call. So definitely moving forward with making NeoLoad a lot more extensible. So appreciate everyone joining. That kind of covers at a high level everything that we wanted to show in terms of NeoLoad Web, our APIs, the new switch action, as well as the Selenium user path conversion. So Greg, I'll go ahead and hand it back off to you. Greg, are you with me?
Thank you very much. Thanks for taking us through that demo, Kirk. And I'm going to open the chat panel up for questions. So if you have questions, you can just type them into the chat window, and we'll see those and respond to those. I'm sorry, in the questions, not the chat itself. So what we'll do is, as the questions come into the questions panel here on the webinar, I will read them out, and if I have the answer, I will read out the answer so that everyone can have that. And Kirk will answer the technical issues. We're going to have the recording of this webinar available on the What's New page for NeoLoad. So you'll be able to listen to this anytime you want to on demand. So I think this one might be a Kirk one. What is the plan for monitoring Node.js servers?
Yeah, so that's we're always looking at introducing additional monitoring for different tiers of the application that we don't have supported right now. We definitely have generic JVM monitoring that's been available for a while. So Node.js and some of those other types of things are certainly being looked at, but nothing definitive in the roadmap for that right now.
The next question is there additional cost associated with the web interface for NeoLoad 6? That is, the licensing questions are best handled with your sales account representative. There are some licensing issues. The functionality is there, but I'm not sure how the licensing costs are worked out for existing users versus new users. And the best person to respond to that would be your sales representative. If you like, I can reach out to you with a personalized answer, and you'll see a response from me, Gregory Paul at neotips.com via email after the session. So we'll get you an answer for that right away. Bill Nicholson said,
yeah, let's go ahead and answer the one, can we start runs from the portal? I saw that one come in, so that's a great question.
Sure.
So that is definitely in the roadmap, and we're expecting to be able to deliver the ability to do execution through the portal by the end of the year. So it's not there right now. Right now it's the monitoring of live tests as well as the analysis after test runs, but that's definitely in the roadmap to have execution for stop and start available in the portal, and we're hoping to deliver that by the end of the year. So thank you for that question.
We also got the question, can I get the web for on-premise installation rather than on SaaS? And the answer is yes. In upcoming release, we'll have, when that is ready for release, we'll have another one of these webinars. We'll demonstrate it and make that available on the website and through the usual channels. That was from Bill Nicholson, one of our staffers here at Neotis. Thanks, Bill. Okay. Kirk, can you handle the one about NeoLoad Web using Neotis servers to store info?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a different storage system for the SaaS Neotis Web. It's actually using our own proprietary storage system in Neotis Web. How does it integrate with Neotis Team Server? You're still going to use Neotis team sorter to manage your projects as a central repository. And then Neotis Web will really be handling storing the results sets rather than like the scripts and that type of thing.
Okay, here's the next question, and this is kind of a you and me thing, Kurt, because somebody wants to know if there's an external source control integration in the roadmap. My understanding is that we do demo with Git at the moment. Do you have any? They also ask about TFS.
Yeah, so definitely Git is in the roadmap. It is coming to be able to use Git as your version control system with NeoLoad. That's in the works right now.
Thanks for that. That was from Jay. For CI/CD flow, is there a plan to provide JUnit XML output?
Yeah, so we actually have that right now. So when Jenkins finishes an automated performance test, for example, we output the report in a JUnit format. And then we also just recently introduced the ability to output the raw results to a file. So that just happened as well with an additional API that we've introduced for raw output.
Pratik also asks if we can send results for tests executed from command line to the web UI.
That's a great question. Absolutely, we can. So we've introduced an additional switch for the command line. So when you're doing your command line execution, there's an additional switch that you'll pass, which is -NL web, and then that'll send those result sets up to the NeoLoad web. And so that's why when I was showing kind of the latest test, when I initially showed the web interface, if you guys noticed, the one that had the parentheses build to after it, that was actually an automated test from Jenkins, ran all from command line execution and then pushed to NeoLoad web. So yes, you can do that.
Thanks for those questions, Pratik Shah. Okay, well, if there are no further questions, I'll jump back into the questions panel after I've ended the audio call. So don't worry if you haven't had a chance to ask your questions. You can either enter them into the chat panel or, again, here's my email address, gregory.paul@neotis.com. You can follow up with me and I will get you an answer. Now, if you want to learn more about NeoLoad, particularly NeoLoad 6, come and join us on our website, neotis.com/NeoLoad. There's a What's New page, there's an overview page that I've listed the link for here. Or you can come and talk with our subject matter experts at one of our Ramp Up user conferences. We've got some upcoming ones. In July, on the 6th, we've got the Ramp Up user conference for London, and that's going to be held at IET. We've got one coming up in New York on July 13th at the New York Marriott Marquis. And we've got another Ramp Up conference in Chicago, Illinois at the Marriott Downtown Magnificent Mile. So you can come to any of those events, see an extended demo, talk with our subject matter experts, and also talk to your account reps. Okay, I don't see any other questions there, so I'm going to thank you all for coming, and hopefully you can take a look at some of these resources that we've outlined. Either join us for a Ramp Up or join us online. Thank you very much to Kirk for presenting, and thank you all for coming once again.